boys and girls, it's Mrs. Carpenter, and today I'm just going to do a quick review on clocks. So I have my analog clock here. We talked about an analog clock, and an analog clock is the kind of clock that you're going to see on the walls at school and in your classroom. So it's important to be able to read an analog clock. Now, I also want to show you a digital clock. I'm going to throw my phone under here. This is a digital clock. You might see it on your mom or dad's phone. You might see it on a microwave. You might also see it on a stove or on the cable box near your TV. When we write time, we write it in digital clock format. So I'm going to talk about both clocks today. We're going to start with the analog clock. So the analog clock has two hands. It has the shorthand, which tells us the hour, and it has the long hand. That's the blue one here. That tells us the minutes. Now, there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if I'm going to take this long hand and I'm going to move it all the way around the clock. If it makes its way all the way back, that's 1 hour. Okay, so that long hand is the minute hand, but it takes 60 minutes to get all the way around the clock. Now, when that long hand is pointing to a number, that tells us the minute. When the shorthand is pointing to a number, that tells us what hour we're in. Now, the minutes on the outside of the clock, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We don't say 1, 1, and we don't say 1, 2. So what happens is we count by fives. So when you're looking at the 1, we're going to call it 5. Okay, I'm going to switch for a second and write them on here. So here, I just have a blank clock. So when I get to the 1, I'm going to say that that's 5 minutes have passed. Here's my minute lines. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Then when I get to the 2, that means 10 minutes have passed. Now when I get to the 3, if we're counting by fives, let's try to figure it out. 5, 10, 15. You're right. 15 minutes have passed. If I can't count by fives, I can go back and I can count each minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But I know how to count by fives, so I'm going to keep counting by fives. I have 5, 10, 15. The 4 is going to be 20. Then I have 25. Then I have 30. Then I have 35. Then I have 40, 45, 50, 55, and then 60, right? Now, we never say the minutes are 60. So we don't say something like it's 5:60. If you get up to this 12 with the minute hand, we say o'clock. O'clock. Okay? And we write it in digital format as 0, 0. So let's just review one more time what our minutes look like. So we're going to count by 5. We have the 1 is 5 minutes, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. But we cross the 60 out and we write 0, 0 and call it o'clock. So if we have our shorthand, which is our hour hand, pointing here to the 1, we're going to call that 1 because the shorthand doesn't touch it. Okay, so that's going to be our hour. These are our hours on the inside and our minutes are on the outside. So the hour hand is the shorthand and it shows us the 1. Okay, when the long hand is pointing at the number 12 all the way up, I want it to touch that 12. That's o'clock. So if my shorthand is pointing at the 1 and my long hand is pointing at the 12, that's called 1 o'clock. Okay, let's try another one using this clock. Okay, I have another clock here. Ready? I'm going to put my shorthand, which is my hour hand, at the 3. Okay, so now I'm going to say my hour first, 3, and I'm going to say my minutes next, o'clock. Now this one has 60. I'm going to cross that off and I'm going to write 00 just so I remember that I call that o'clock when that long hand is on there. So right now I have 3 o'clock. I'm going to move my short hand again. That's my hour hand. I'm going to keep my minute hand on the o'clock. So now I'm going to move my hour hand and I'm going to go down to 5. So now it's 5 o'clock. I'm going to move it again. And I'm going to go over here to 8. So anytime my shorthand is pointing at a number, I'm going to say the number on the inside of the clock, not the number that we used on the outside for the minutes. The shorthand is the hour. Okay, so you're going to use that 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 for the hours. So right now the clock shows 8 o'clock. Now, I have some rules to help you when you're telling time. There's 3 easy steps. Get some paper. Okay. Step 1. We're going to look at the shorthand and say the number. So I'm going to write shorthand number. Okay. Step 2, we're going to draw 2 dots. Okay. And step 3 is that we're going to look at the minute hand. That's the long hand. And figure out what that one is pointing to. What number is that one pointing to? So let me show you what I mean by this. I have another clock here. Okay. I'm going to try and lift it up so you can see both of these at the same time. Okay. So here I have my clock. I'm going to put my long hand on the 12, and I'm going to put my short hand on the 9. So step 1 says I need to look at my shorthand. What's my shorthand pointing to? If you said 9, you're right. So my first number that I need to write when I'm writing time is going to be 9. Now, my second thing that I need to do is 2 dots. So I'm going to write 2 dots. Then I'm going to look at the long hand next, because step 3 is to look at the long hand. Now I see that my long hand is on the 12, but we said that when we look at the long hand, we have to say those other numbers. Remember those minute numbers? And I know that when it's pointing at the 12, it was 60, but I switched it so that it said 0, 0. So remember this clock right here? It was 60 when it was pointing to the 12, but we changed it to 0, 0 so it could say o'clock. So I know that while it's on my 12, I'm going to write 0, 0. Okay, let's try another one. I'm going to move that one. Now my minute hand goes all the way around because an hour has passed. Now my shorthand is on the 10. So my first step right here, my shorthand, I need to write the number that my shorthand is on. So I'm going to write 10. Step 2, you've got it. It's to write my 2 dots. Step 3 is to look at my long hand. My long hand is still on that 12, and we know that when it's on the 12, it means o'clock. And we write o'clock as 0, 0. Right? So I'm going to write 0, 0. There we go. Okay, let me try another one. I'm going to do this one. Okay, first step. Tell me what it is. Step 1, look at the shorthand. Shorthand is pointing to the 2. Step 2, draw my 2 dots. You've got it. Step 3, look at my long hand. What number is the long hand pointing to? It's pointing to the 12, and I know that when the long hand is on the 12, it's 0, 0. So this clock says 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. Now I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to move the longhand. Let's see if you can see this. The longhand is moving and it's going around the clock. And as the longhand moves, so does the shorthand. So my longhand makes it down to the 6. Okay, my longhand is on the 6. Now, my shorthand is between the 2 and the 3. Is it pointing to a number? It's not pointing to a number. It's between two numbers. So the first thing I do is look at the shorthand. I see that the shorthand is between the two numbers. Anytime it's between the two numbers, you're going to want to write the number that it passed. And it already passed to the number 2. It hasn't gotten down to that 3 yet. So I can't say it's 3. But it passed to the 2, so it already was 2. So I'm going to start with my shorthand and I'm going to write 2. Then my second step is to draw my 2 dots. My longhand is on 6. Do I want to write 6? I don't. I want to write the minutes. Let's see. What was that number that I counted by? You're right if you said 5. So I'm going to go back up here. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. This clock shows 2:30. Okay. Now, let me try another one of those. I'm going to go to the 7. I have 7 o'clock. I'm going to keep going. Okay, let me see. I'm going to make my long hand's going to move and my short hand's going to move at the same time. See how my shorthand is going much slower than my long hand? Look at where my shorthand ended up. First step, look at my shorthand. My shorthand is between the 7 and the 8. You're always going to write the number that it passed when it's between two numbers. So what number did it pass? Which number is less? Because that's the one that it passed. The number that it passed here was 7. So I'm going to write 7. Next step, 2 dots. Whenever you're reading a clock, these should be your 3 steps, okay? Now, my next step and my final step is to look at the longhand, the minute hand. It's on the 6, but I know that I need to count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. This clock says 7:30. It's not 8 o'clock yet. It's halfway between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock. 7:30. Okay. Now, let's try another one. I'm going to move this long minute hand is going to go around. Hold on a second. Technical difficulties. Let me make the long hand go around. Okay, now the long hand made it all the way up to the 12. So this clock shows me the time of what? Shorthand first, 8, 2 dots, then the long hand. When the long hand points to the 12, we say o'clock. We write o'clock as 0, 0. Okay, now my shorthand is going to move slow and my long hand is going to move faster and farther. So my long hand makes it down to the 6 and my shorthand is between the 8 and the 9. So my shorthand only moved a little bit past the 8, while my long hand moved 30 whole minutes. Okay, so let's talk about this time. Let's look at our shorthand. The shorthand is between the 8 and the 9. So the first step is to look at my shorthand. And my shorthand has an 8. Okay, because that's the number that I passed. I'm not at the 9 yet. You always have to write the number that you passed when it's between numbers. Now I'm going to do 2 dots. That's step 2. Step 3, tell me. Look at my, you've got it. Look at my longhand. So this clock says 8. It's pointing to that 6. We've been practicing this one. If you can't remember, go back and count by 5s. 5. You've got it. It's 30. It's halfway to 9 o'clock. It's 8:30. Okay. Now it's your turn. Get a piece of paper. I'm going to use my clock. I'll give you a moment. Grab your piece of paper and your pencil. And I'm going to try to make this go up a little higher. Okay. All right. I have my clock here. Okay. Now, the time on my clock right now has the shorthand pointing to the 8. Okay. So let me get my 3 rules so that you can remember them. Rule number 1, shorthand. Shorthand is pointing to 8. So I'm going to write 8. Okay, now 2 dots are right here for me. Then step 3, look at my longhand. My longhand is pointing to the 12. And the 12 means it's on the hour. So o'clock, and I write o'clock as 0, 0. And there you go. This is the analog clock showing 8 o'clock. And this is the digital clock showing 8 o'clock. Let's try a few more. Ready? I'm going to move my clock. It's going to go like this. Okay. So my minute hand has made it all the way around, and my short hour hand has moved 1 number. So we just had 8 o'clock, and now 1 hour has passed. See if you can figure out what time my clock says. Remember your 3 steps. Step 1, write the shorthand number. Okay. Step 2, draw 2 dots. Step 3, look at the longhand number. The longhand is pointing to the 12, so it's still o'clock. Okay, go ahead and write your answer. I'm going to write mine here, and I'm going to hide it. Okay, let's check. If you had 9 o'clock, you were right. Now I'm going to try one more. Let's try this one. Now my minute hand is going to go halfway around the clock. And my shorthand, my hour hand, is going to go halfway between the 9 and the 10. Okay, step 1. Look at the shorthand. It's in between a number, but I remember that my teacher told me when it's in between a number, I have to write the number that it passed. You're right. Which number did I pass? Go ahead and write it. Step 2 is to draw your 2 dots. And step 3 is to look at the longhand. I see that my longhand is pointing to the 6 again. And I know that when it points to the 6, I write the number 30 because 30 minutes have passed. So this clock says 9:30. Good job, friends. I'm going to try another one here, actually. Now I'm going to this one. I moved my hour hand. My minute hand goes around another 30 minutes. Well, I get to o'clock again. This one's an easy one. at the shorthand first. 10. Draw your 2 dots. 2 dots. Now you go to the longhand, and the longhand is at 0, 10 o'clock. Okay. Now I want to try something a little bit different. You know your 3 steps. Once you have those 3 steps down, you should be able to read at any time it's showing. You follow those 3 steps. So let's do this. I'm going to move this, and I'm going to do this. This looks a little bit different. Let's see if we can figure it out with our 3 steps. Step number 1. What was it? Look at my shorthand. Here's my shorthand. Shorthand is between the 10 and the 11. And I know when it's between a number, I write the number that it passed. I know that when my hands are going on the clock, they go clockwise. So they go this way. So my hand just passed the number 10. So I'm going to write a 10. Now, my long hand, my minute hand, it's not on the 12. So it's not o'clock. And it's not on the 6, so it's not 30. It's on the 2. And if I'm counting by 5, I say 5, 10. You've got it. It's on the 10. So my clock says 10. Draw your 2 dots. 10. Do you understand that? Let's try another one. Let's try. I'm only going to go a little bit here. 10. All right, let's see. First rule, first step, look at the shorthand. Shorthand is between the 10 and the 11. So I know that it's 10 because that's the number that my shorthand passed. I can't write 11 because it hasn't gotten to the 11 yet. I can only write the number that it passed, the number that's less. Now I'm going to look at my longhand. I already have my 2 dots. I'm looking at my longhand. My longhand is pointing to the 4. I know that I have to count by 5s when I'm looking at my longhand. 5, 10, 15, 20. You've got it. This time is 10, 20. Okay, I'm going to try one more, and this time I'm going to let you do it all by yourself. Ready? Okay. Go ahead and follow your 3 steps. Step 1, look at the shorthand. Here's my shorthand. My shorthand is between the 10 and the 12. Write the number that you think is going to be the hour. What number am I going to write for that shorthand? Go ahead and do it. Next step is to draw your 2 dots. Here's my 2 dots. They're already drawn. And the final 3rd step is to look at the long hand, the minute hand. It's pointing to the 7, but I can't write 10, 7. I need to write something else. Go ahead and write your answer. I'm going to write mine down here. Okay, friends, if you had 10:35, you are correct. So if you remember those steps, you will know how to read an analog clock and turn it into digital clock time. Remember, number 1 was to look at the shorthand and write the number. Number 2 is to draw your 2 dots. Number 3 is to look at the longhand and write the number. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So we have to start at the 1 and count by 5 so we can get to 60 minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. We don't write 60 when it's on the hour. So when that blue hand is on the hour, 0, 0. Okay, so this time here is 11. And that is all, friends. Go ahead and have your parents maybe draw some digital clocks for you, and maybe you could practice some more times. But that's all we have for today. In kindergarten, you really only need to know to the hour. You need to know all of the o'clocks. And you also, in first grade, you'll do to the half hour. But I'm teaching you those 3 steps now because when you go into first grade, you go into second grade, and you learn more about clocks, if you have those 3 steps down, you should not have any problem reading a clock. Talk to you later, friends.